Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Namrata, and today we are going to present our project named as Salon Space. And my other team members are Akshara and Beatrice. So moving on the first slide. Next slide, please. Okay, this is about the project description. So the project Salon Space, basically it's a software application to book an appointment for different services. And the basic flow of this project is uh, first thing is login salon, then service discovery, then booking for particular services. Then this application has a user friendly interface to make a booking or a reservation. Also, this application allows salon owners to manage all the information effectively to improve the efficiency of application. So now talking about the major capabilities. Uh, First one is data management and second one is simplified search. Simplified search, selection and scheduling of the salon services. In the effective data management, the software uses strong data management strategies, which guarantees the effective storage and data retrieval using the database. Along with that, it will help us to understand the backend system and how it integrated with the other modules. And the second one is simplified search, selection, and scheduling of the salon services. It provides the user-friendly design along with the effective algorithm. Also, user experience ideas been applied to streamline the reservation process, considering the interaction and usability into the account. So next slide will be presented by Beatrice.
All right. Okay, so one of the architectural styles that we found to be appropriate for our application was the client server architectural style. And before I begin my presentation on it, I'm gonna just give you a quick demo of how a client would access our application from their web browser. So to access our application from their web browser, a client would first go to the registration endpoint of our API link. And then once they get there, they get a registration form where they would enter their credentials so that they can be registered into our application. And so I'm just gonna do that real quick right now. Enter my password. And so when I click on the register link, it will give me a confirmation message that I've been registered successfully. Welcome to our app. And now I can just go to this other, it will redirect me to the login page through this. Already have an account login, so I'll click on that. And then to log in, I'll enter my email again. And just to make sure that our system is authenticated and not letting in anybody, I'm just gonna try by first entering a wrong password. And you see that if I do that, it gives me the invalid username or password notification. So now let me just enter the invalid password. So once I'm successfully logged into the system, it will present me with the dashboard. And on the dashboard, it's just a list of salons that are available and their addresses and the services that they offer. And so if I'm looking for a specific service, I can click on this search for service button and enter the specific service that I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for manicuring services. I'd click on manicure and then search. And when I do that, it would give me back specific salons that offer manicure services. And then their distance in miles from my address. And so if I wanted, say, go to something that is close to me, I would click on this beauty salon 3 because that is like 0.9 miles away from me. So I'll click on their services. And then here on this page, I'll see other services that are offered by this particular salon. And so to make reservation for manicuring services, I'll just go to this drop down list here, select manicure, and then click on the make reservation button, and it will give me a confirmation that I have successfully made reservation for manicure at Beauty Salon 3, and it will give me a confirmation number or reservation ID. If I wanted to make a reservation for another service, I'll go back to the select service and click make reservation. All right, now let me go back to this discussion of client server architecture. So client server has two sides to it, or two modularities to it, the client side and the server side. On the client side, we have our Salon web client because our client will be using a web browser to access our app. And we also have the HTTP client for communicating to the server. And on the server side, we also have HTTP server for communication to the client. And here within the server itself, we have the controller, which acts as the midpoint between the client and the server. So it relays requests from the client to the server and responses from the server to the client. And then we have the service layer, which has the business logic components. So it has the components that are responsible for the business logic of the application. And then the data access layer has components for that are responsible for data access. So that is for storage and retrieval of data from the database. And then we have the security configuration component that is responsible for the security of the system. So things like authentication and authorization and overall web security of our application. And I also have the Google Maps API component that I integrated with the service layer for calculating the distance between addresses. And finally, we have the database that is used for storage and retrieval of the data. And so, and to the next slide, we have the client server class diagram. And so in this class diagram, we have this Salon link controller that is acting as a unified interface or like a facade that connects to all the services offered by application. So you can see it's associated with the registration service, it's associated with the login service, the reservation service, the search service here, and the select salon service here. Similarly, the search salon service is also connected to the Google Maps API service because that's where it gets the this is what it uses to calculate the distance between addresses, and then the salon repository because that's where it retrieves information from for the salon information, and the customer repository because that's where it gets the customer information to calculate the distance between the customer and the customer address and the salon address. And similarly, you can see the associations between all these other classes. And I'm gonna move on to the next slide, the client server class diagram and component mapping. So here, the Salon link controller maps to the Salon web client, the HTTP client and the HTTP server, and also the controller on the server side. It maps to all of those components because this is what facilitates the communication between the web client and the server. And then for the server layer, I have registration, login, search, select, and reservation services classes that map to the components under the service layer that are responsible for the business logic. And then for the data access layer, I have customer, salon, and reservation repository classes that map to the components for data access within this layer. And then for the Google Maps API component that I had, this class here maps to that. And for the security layer, the password encoder and the web security configuration classes map to this particular component. And for the database, I have customer, salon, and reservation class entities that I use to store data to the database. And now moving on to the client server pros. These are some of the pros of client server: scalability, horizontal and vertical scaling, as well as load balancing and caching are possible for a client server architecture, making it highly scalable. And then centralization, because of its centrality, it's easier to manage data and ensure its consistency within the client server architecture. And for security, centrality also allows for better control over access to resources and data. Now to the cons. These are some of the cons of client server. Although centralization can be a pro, it can also be a con in that it presents a central point of failure. So if a server fails, because it contains every other thing that is pertaining our application, it's gonna, our services are gonna be down. And for performance bottlenecks, servers could become overloaded by heavy client activity. And it's also costly because it's expensive to buy and maintain powerful servers and the expertise associated with it. And for the risk analysis part, we have performance risk. Growing client base could lead to server overloads and latency delays if server scaling doesn't match the growth. Security risk poses risks of unauthorized access, data breaches, and denial of service attacks if security measures are not regularly updated. And for the availability risk, it is centralized in nature. It's centralized in nature, which could cause availability issues if there's not a robust backup mechanism in place. And that's it for client server. Akshara is going to be presenting next.
So now moving on to the microservices architecture style for our application. So this slide here shows us the component diagram. So here we have the component diagram that shows a high-level overview of how the user interacts with the web application built using the microservices architectural style. So on the left, we have a user represented by a label web, which indicates that the user is interacting with the application through a web interface. In the middle, we have the API gateway, which acts as an entry point towards the application. It routes the user's requests to the appropriate services that are given within the services box, which is the salon discovery, service selection, and the reservation services. So when the user makes a request via the web interface, it is sent over the HTTP API to the API gateway. If it's a login request, it is handled directly by the API gateway, which likely involves some interaction with the database to authenticate the user. For other types of requests, the API gateway forwards them to the appropriate microservices. Let's say the user wants to book a service. The flow would be the salon discovery to set. The flow would be like the user phone login will be sent to the salon discovery service, and later on, they are moved to the service selection page where the user can select any service that they desire, and then they can make a reservation on the reservation selection page. So you will notice that each microservice can interact with the database. This indicates that each service manages their own tables within the database, which is a key principle of the architecture, which promotes data encapsulation and service dependencies. Next slide, please. So moving on to the class diagram for our microservice architecture. So we start off with the user registration microservice, where we have the user class, user entity, which is mapped to the user controller, where we save the user registration information using the save method in the user service class. Later on, after saving this, we are redirected to the login page, where the login is authenticated, and login authentication is done by the security configuration class. And after this, we are moving on to the salon discovery page, where we search for salons depending on our zip code. So the information about the salon is held in the salon class, which has the name, address, zip code, and uh, contact information about the salon. So we can choose the desired salon so the desired salon can be displayed depending on the controller class that is mapped to the salon entity. So from the controller class, we use the salon service class, which holds the information about the zip code method. So we use the find by zip code method in order to retrieve the information about the salons, upon which we get the salon information, and then you click on the desired salon, which will redirect us to the salon service class. So this salon service entity has information about the salon ID, the service names, and the price of each service. So we retrieve these salon service information by uh, mm, by by having a connection to the salon discovery microservice, which has its database configured to it. So the data table configured to it, which interacts with the salon service table to retrieve the salon ID and the service information from it. So post this, when we select the desired salon, we are moved on to the reservation page, which holds information about the name, contact, and the date and time that we choose while on the reservation page. So on completion of our reservation, we move on to save the reservation using the save reservation class method. So this is about the class diagram. Can we go on to the next, please? So this is the component or connector mapping diagram that implements the classes that we have seen in the previous diagram. So starting from the left, we have the user, which is depicted in red, who interacts with the system through the web user interface. This is where the users can input their data, make requests, and receive information. As the requests are made, they pass through the API gateway. This is a crucial component that acts as a traffic controller as well, directing the request to the appropriate microservices. It also takes care of authenticating the users, ensuring the secure access to the services. At the heart of our data management lies the database. It's a shared resource that each microservice accesses to persist information. The arrows actually show how the data flows into and out of the database, signifying the creation and retrieval of the records. So this microservice provides several benefits, which will be explained by Namrata in the next slide.
Okay, so talking about the pros of microservices, the major pros of microservice application for these specific projects are modular development, customizable scalability, fault resilience, and isolation, along with flexibility in integration. So in modular development, I would say we can manage and enables different features separately for a particular model. And the second one in customizable scalability, if we want to add different features and in the future as per the market demand, this allows us to independently scalability of each function. And the third one is fault resilience and isolation. So it guarantees that failure in one function will not impact the other functionality. And the last one is the flexibility in integration. So the integration with the third party is necessary for the software application. So this will enhance the smooth integration of the external services. So next slide, please. Okay, so then the major cons of this microservices are complexity, service communication, difficulties in testing and debugging, and the last one is scalability challenges. So the complexity of the application is when there is a need of communication between different services. This may lead to failure in some areas. Also, this might add some difficulties in testing and debugging between the microservices due to synchronization. And also the scalability changes to manage the resources and implementing its techniques are necessary in order to meet increasing in user demand without compromising the performance while implementing the real-time features. So that's all about the cons. Thank you. So Akshara will start with next slide.
So, we have selected the microservices architecture for our application depending on these 4 factors. The first one is tailored scalability. So, in this, our microservice architecture facilitates the scalability of our application individually according to our demand. For instance, if we need more resources for salon reservations during peak times, we can scale that service independently without having to scale the entire applications all at once. So next is the seamless integration. So our microservice architecture facilitates the incorporation of external services such as mapping APIs for locating salons or payment gateways for handling transactions. This integration occurs without compromising the system's reliability, ensuring that we maintain a seamless user experience. So the next one is fault isolation. The third advantage is designed to is fault isolation, which is so microservices are designed to operate independently. This means if there's an issue with the salon discovery service, it will not affect other services like the reservation management. User can still book their appointments without interruption, ensuring continuous service availability. And the final point is agile adaptation. So lastly, we have this, the microservice architecture empowers us to quickly adjust to changes in customer preferences and new trends in the salon industry. Because each service is decoupled, we can update or improve functions without the need to overhaul the entire application. This flexibility supports rapid and continuous improvement. So these 4 pillars, the scalability, integration, fault isolation, and agile adaptation support our rationale for selecting the microservices architecture. It provides a resilient, flexible, and scalable foundation for our salon booking application, aligning with our commitment to delivering an exceptional user experience.
Okay, so talking about the risk analysis of microservices, the first one is service communication complexity. This particular risk occurs due to the microservice interacting with one another. There might be a delay in a particular application. So to prevent this, the mitigation using the empirical evidence is to prevent bottlenecks and communication delays. And we can use a prototype microservices interaction, which will allows for proactive optimization. The second one is data management and consistency. So the keeping salon and user data consistency across microservices is challenging, and it carries a risk of the error. So the mitigation for this is to ensure data integrity and avoid errors, implementing strong data consistency checks and resolution procedures throughout the microservices. And the third one is dependency management. So when the crucial process like payment processing depends on third-party services, and the mitigation for this is utilizing past data, evaluate the dependability of third-party services to identify potential risks and put in a place and just take care of that particular risk. And the last one is operational complexity. The managing multiple microservices make it difficult to maintain. Then to avoid this risk, there is a mitigation that says simplify the dependent monitoring and management of microservices by utilizing automation and yeah, that's the basic mitigation for the operational complexity. Okay, so let's start with the demo of microservices. So this is the registration page where we need to give the full name, address, zip code, contact, email, and a password. I'm just entering the data. So after entering these all the details, we'll click on the register. Then it will navigate to the next page, which is login page, where we just need to give the email and the password. And when we click on login, it will navigate to the next page, which is search salon, where we need to enter a zip code and click on search. When we click on search, it will show us a nearby salons with the name and the address. Once we click on that particular salon, it will show the service selection option where we can select the services which we want, and then click on submit selected services, and it will navigate to make a reservation where we need to give the name, contact, and the reservation date and time. Okay, so once we fill this data, need to click on submit reservation. Okay, then we'll get a confirmation notification that reservation is confirmed. Yeah, that's all about the demo. Thank you.